Today we'll be discussing the CSUF Women's and Adult Reentry Center with our special guest, Alyssa Avila.
Followed by a shocking update from Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders as he officially endorses Joe Biden.
And finally, we're committed to bringing you the news, views, and info to go on this episode of the Report Roundtable Discussion. I'm Bree Eastlick.
I'm Jefferson Denham.
And I'm Ryan Matthew, and as you can see, we are continuing to practice social distancing and are going to conduct our episodes via Zoom for the foreseeable future. And although we cannot be together physically in person, we invite you all to continue to be a part of the discussion. Follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF or on our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our new content. We begin this week's episode by welcoming a very special guest to the report. She's the director of the Women and Adult Reentry Center at Cal State Fullerton, which aims to educate students on issues of gender and social equity through a feminist lens. And please join me in welcoming Alyssa Avila to the show. Alyssa, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And so obviously we're living in some very unique times, I would say. A lot of people haven't lived like this before. And so for a lot of businesses, a lot of centers, especially on college campuses throughout the nation, these centers are being shut down or they're being forced to transition to an online format. And so before we get into that part, I would just love to know kind of the basics. What is the Women's and Adult Reentry Center and what do you guys do?
Absolutely. So our center is one of the longest standing identity-based centers on campus. We've been open since 1972. And so we've had, different transformations within our center, but today we offer 3 different programs. So we have our Women and Gender Initiatives, which really provides opportunities for students to engage in conversations and learning around issues of gender, issues around feminism, issues around social equity, and kind of diving into what that means in terms of identity, what it means in their daily lives, and having opportunities to have those conversations with other students. So that's our Women and Gender Initiatives program. We also have our violence prevention program. So we provide confidential services and education to students about issues related to sexual assault, dating and domestic violence, and stalking. And so we really, really want to make sure that we reduce the number of people who are impacted by those crimes. And so the educational component is very important to us, that we're talking to students and helping them learn more about these issues, but also providing services that are vital to folks who are in need right now. So that's our violence prevention program. And then we are also the Adult Reentry Center. So we serve non-traditional students. So students who are 25 years or older and are coming back to school, students who maybe had a gap in their education and are returning back, or students who are parents. So we provide services like assistance with their CalWORK. So if they're getting specific funds for their education from the state, then we can assist them with those things. We also do some pre-advising. So if students were a student in the past and now they're trying to come back, but they're trying to figure out the process, we can help them with that. And we also do other workshops and programs to support those students because their lives are very different from an 18 or 19-year-old starting college for the first time. So those are our programs. We love our students. We want to make sure that even during this time, they're getting the support they need. And so they should know that we are still up and running, even though we're virtual today.
Alyssa, I am so happy that you're here. And from a personal point of view, there's a couple of reasons why I'm excited to talk with you. One is I'm a returning student. So
hey!
the whole reentry dynamic is profound. And so I'm thrilled to know that you're a part of that. But also, I had a very close relative who endured sexual violence, domestic violence from her husband. And I know that it's just so valuable to have these kind of resources available. As a matter of fact, isn't April Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I believe. So this is why it's so wonderful to have you here for that. What is, in that vein, what are some things that are a surprise, that could be surprising for the general populace that they may not know about, sexual violence or domestic violence?
I think a lot of people know that sexual violence is an issue and that it happens, but I don't think that folks really understand how often it does. So there's some national statistics that talk about, 1 in 3 women will be impacted by sexual violence in their lifetime. Specifically to college students, we know that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 16 men experience sexual violence during their time in college. We know that 1 in 6 boys has experienced some form of sexual violence as a child. So there's tons of statistics that I could share, but those are kind of the highlights. But I think every single number that is kind of assigned to those stats is a person, right? And every person has a unique experience, has a unique story. But a lot of people, even though, the Me Too movement has gained so much traction, there's so much more conversation, I think, than there ever has been about this issue. There's still an extreme layer of silence around these topics. And I think many people who go through this or have gone through this in the past really don't tell people. And that's due to, shame, maybe feeling embarrassed, fear, and also just this extreme worry about being blamed for what's happened to them. So I think even though we're having way more conversations about this now, there's still a lot of layers that we have to kind of break through in order for survivors to feel supported. But I think that's the shocking thing, is that there's still so much work to do. And there's still so many people being impacted.
Absolutely. I totally agree with what you have to say, especially with statistics. You can name all these numbers, but your brain can't actually comprehend just how much that is. You can't actually picture all of those faces. So I totally understand that. But what I want to talk about, thank you for coming here today. And what I want to talk about is, how has it affected going on virtually for you guys? Having all of this happen and then having to move everything online. How has it affected you guys for trying to reach out and get people to realize that you're still helping, you're still trying to get people to talk and help everyone?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And a lot of different departments on campus and other universities are trying to figure out what's the best way to communicate with students, to make sure that they know that resources are still available. I think even though it's been a few weeks, people are still inundated with emails after email after email about updates or from their faculty. So I think there's a lot of competing priorities right now. For students, we see that some students are engaging, right? So we have virtual discussion groups that we're hosting. We are starting a support group for parenting students this week. So there's some students who are reaching out and who are trying to connect with other students on campus or with departments, because they need that connection, they need that support. And then I think there's other students who are still trying to figure out how to manage the daily changes of COVID-19 and how that's impacted their life. I think it's very unique to see students kind of grappling with this, because when they came to campus, maybe they felt a little more in line with every other student, but now some students are maybe living on their own. Some students went back home to family where they have siblings. Student parents are trying to figure out how to manage working from home, school from home, and maybe even homeschooling or taking care of their child all at the same time. So yeah, the transition has been unique, but we do want to let folks know that we do have some virtual opportunities that they can join us. I think the best way for people to kind of know what we're doing is to follow us on Instagram. So we're at CSUF_WARC, and we're constantly posting updates, resources, or other opportunities for students to connect through this virtual world.
That's fantastic. And moving over to an issue that's now affecting people on a national scale is with these stay-at-home orders, people are literally forced to stay at home. And for these homes, for some people, they're not what we would consider a healthy relationship, whether they're with an abusive partner, whether it's a parent or a sibling, as you mentioned, it could be any sort of situation. And we have people like the National Domestic Violence Hotline saying that they've seen a huge spike in daily calls, just compared to how it was last year. And so in this time where people are really forced to stay at home and home may not be the safest place for them, how are you guys counseling these people to kind of go around this issue that these people are facing, and probably not facing behind closed doors and stuff that we wouldn't even be able to see or tell?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You know, even in times not like this one, right? Times before, one of the crucial resources that we assist survivors with is safety planning. So safety planning is essentially trying to think about a survivor's unique experience and their unique situation, right? Because not every person is the same, not every situation is the same. And so trying to look at what are their strengths, what resources do they have access to, and who could they reach out to that is a safe person or is a safe resource. And so really what that means is constructing a plan for that specific person. And so now that we're dealing with the staying at home situation, it's very isolating for individuals who are in unsafe homes. And so part of the adjustment that we've had to make is trying to find a way where we can safely talk to that person when they're not around the individual who's harming them. So that's kind of one unique piece. But the support is similar in that we're still trying to construct safety plans with those individuals. And safety can look like physical safety. It could be emotional safety. It could even be spiritual, maybe. So there's a lot of nuances to it, but it's really about trying to find ways that the individual can find safety in their own way, right? And based on their own strengths and own resources. But having the opportunity to talk it out with our advocate is really helpful because it puts a little structure in what may seem like a very chaotic situation.
Could you tell me more about the hashtag Letters to Survivors, which I know you guys are posting on social media?
Yes, absolutely. So we did conduct a tabling activity where CSUF students, other Titans, could write supportive letters to survivors. And so we would have them on these little hearts. People would come up and just write a supportive letter, and we would save those. And typically we would either provide them to a survivor when they, had a meeting or an appointment with our advocate, especially when students were struggling in terms of maybe feeling hopeful, or especially in hard times, maybe when they were going to do an interview with law enforcement or go to court, things like that, where they needed a little bit more inspiration or hope or encouragement. We would give those letters to them. And so we started getting a lot of letters. And so we would save those, and we decided to try to transform it into, something that we could spread online. And so we started posting those on our social media. And so these are messages from real students to survivors in our community, really just expressing that we hear you, we see you, we believe you. And like you said, you're not alone. And I think that can be really helpful to get that little bit of encouragement when you're going through a dark time.
That's so true. Just a little note can bring someone so much happiness and really get them through what they're going through. So I really like that. And I'd love to write one of those in the future. And so I was kind of wondering, for someone who has seen this interview, and kind of wants to get involved, what kind of leadership opportunities are available for those who want to join? And why do you think they're important for someone to have for their future?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you asked that, because we are planning for the next year, and I know things are still a little uncertain. We don't know exactly what next academic year is going to look like, but we're trying to move forward with the best information that we have right now. And typically it's around this time that we start hiring for student employee positions in our center. So if somebody wants to get involved, we have several different opportunities that we're looking to hire students for. This is all for undergraduate students. So we have student assistants, so individuals who qualify for work study. And these students are kind of like the face of our center. They're the first people that folks see when they walk in the door. They help kind of oversee the general management of our space. So they really get a lot of experience in customer service and kind of interacting, asking questions, working with folks who are in need of support services or are looking for something but aren't really sure what they need. And so they're really gaining those experiences. They also assist with our social media, marketing, and our outreach. So we are looking for student assistants. We also have interns that work in our center in 2 different programs. So we have peer facilitators who work in our Women and Gender Initiatives program. They actually are the ones who facilitate our bi-weekly gender chat discussion group. So they develop topics, they develop and do the research around these topics, and then they facilitate a discussion with other students to kind of learn more about these issues, ask questions, but in a comfortable space with other peers. So that's our peer facilitator group. And then we also have peer educators. So these are students who work in our violence prevention program. So they learn how to positively and proactively educate other students about issues related to sexual and domestic violence. So they get a lot of training. They learn how to present and facilitate workshops and presentations on these topics, and they help us plan our Awareness Month programming. So specifically for October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and then April, which is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So a lot of different leadership opportunities. We would love for folks to come by and look at our website. We'll be posting those very soon, probably in the next week or so they can learn more about these positions and apply.
Alrighty, and where can you go? Where is your guys' building at on campus, just for people to know?
Yeah, so we're located in Gordon Hall 205. For folks, it used to be called University Hall, so now it's Gordon Hall. So really close, if you need a landmark, to the Carl's Jr. on campus.
Very important. We really appreciate you speaking with us today. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think the main thing is that I want to let our students know that we're still here for you. We know things are unique and challenging at this time. We're hoping that you're healthy. We're hoping that you're well. And if you need support, if you need that connection, please reach out to us. Like I said, the best way to get updates is through our Instagram, CSUF_WARC, or through our website. If they just Google Women's Center on the Fullerton page, they'll be able to find us. So please reach out, folks.
Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us today. We do really appreciate it. And for more information on the Women's Center and Adult Reentry Center, visit their website on fullerton.edu/Women's Center. Alyssa, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
So let's switch from local to national news. Just 5 days after suspending his campaign for the presidency, Bernie Sanders officially endorsed Democratic candidate Joe Biden for the 2020 presidential election on Monday. The Vermont senator's endorsement was made during a live stream broadcast by Biden's campaign on his website and social media. This endorsement is signaling Biden as the Democratic candidate for the presidency. Now, 4 short years ago, at the 2016 Democratic National Convention, we had a bit of a kerfuffle, if you may recall. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the DNC chairperson, was ousted because there was a leaked email that seemed to show that there was a bit of a conspiracy to sabotage Bernie Sanders' campaign. I don't see anything like that this time around, not anything like that kind of drama. The video announcement that we saw with the 2 of them showing, in my humble opinion, a warm relationship between them. Yes, they disagree on things, but they're still able to work together. And they're assembling teams to work out ideas between the 2 camps. And remember, Bernie is not giving up his delegates, and people can still vote for him. So he's guaranteed to have some power, some clout when they're putting the Democratic platform together.
It was interesting because I was on Twitter the day that Sanders had announced his endorsement for Biden, and there were a few tweets I saw saying that, kind of giving Biden a pat on the back, saying, like, you know, you've done your hardest, like, you have kind of completed what you come here to do, which that is not the case. There's obviously, he still needs to get the presidency, which, you know, is going to take another months and months and months until November. But beyond that, if he is hoping to beat Trump, something that any Democrat, I think, would agree on is they want to unify the whole party. That way they have that power to actually take over the presidency. And so for Biden, I am very supportive in the sense that if you want to win something, you need to unify everybody on your team. I do get that part, but for everybody to be unified is up to Biden, and see how he kind of navigates up until November.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, if you look back in 2016, it took Sanders, a long time to actually endorse Clinton. So for him to come out, this early and say, you know what, I'm done, I'm going to endorse Biden, I think that kind of shows just how much he realizes that we really do need to come together. I mean, you're right. He's been saying it from the beginning. A lot of them have, we need to come together, be one as a team, and vote for who we think can actually beat Trump, as they've been saying. So I think it's great that Sanders, did it so early. I think one way I've been reading is to kind of get help from New York's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She says that nobody's reached out to her yet, but look, she was one of Bernie's biggest supporters. She was with him at rallies. She was always supporting him. So, she says that she hasn't gotten anyone to reach out to her yet. But I think that if Biden does that, if his campaign reaches out to her, we can get more people over on the Biden side, and kind of realize, look, someone who's as loyal as she was to Bernie changed her mind and is going behind Biden. So we'll just have to see, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it in the future. But how about we head over to technology? Tech giants like Apple and Google are frequently turned to by the US government for solutions to problems surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. And while their data aggregator technologies could better assist in containing the spread, it could come at the cost of your privacy. CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan explains.
Remember when spring breakers in Florida wouldn't stop partying, even after the coronavirus pandemic hit the United States? What happened when spring break was over?
We can actually track movement of these devices over the remaining weeks of March, seeing where these devices went after spring breakers left the beach.
So what you're seeing in this video is what happens if people do not exercise social distancing, where a group of individuals, or a few thousand people in this case, gathered at a beach in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and all the places they've traveled, showcasing how interconnected our world is.
Josh Anton runs Xmode, a company that tracks the movement of devices like cell phones. His team says it's used location data to track where everyone on the beach in Fort Lauderdale in March went after they left, including those spring breakers.
From New York to the Midwest, even Canada. The power of this location data, it can be used to understand not only, how people and where people are traveling post gathering, but also potentially to prepare and to be proactive if something happens, right? To be able to identify future hotspots of where the coronavirus could happen.
Anton says the company tracks 25 million devices every month in the United States and millions more around the world. Xmode says it would be willing to work with governments and other groups to help stop the spread of the coronavirus.
We comply with GDPR, we comply with CCPA, but we try to go a step beyond it, which is, being what we call privacy conscious.
The company claims it licenses that data to third parties, including advertisers, without any personal identifying information. While Anton says his company makes every effort to keep data secure and doesn't identify the owners of the devices it is tracking, there are serious privacy concerns about this kind of technology.
I think it's very important that users consent to this, and it's very important that you act ethically with that data.
Okay, so before we start on our banter, I just want to talk that Xmode is its own company. It isn't related to Apple or Google. It is its own company, but we're talking about Apple and Google today because they are trying to build technology that is like Xmode. So they're working on that right now, and then we're hopefully going to be using that in the future. But I personally think this could be a great use of technology. One thing that they were really talking about is that people are really worried about their privacy and like how much freedom that they're going to have with, this technology coming out. But what Apple and Google have already come out and said is, quote, users will have to provide explicit consent for the platform to work, and no information that can be used to identify individual users will be collected, end quote. So I think that if they are telling the truth, they don't actually, show everyone who is who on their phones, then I think that this could be a great use of technology. What do you guys think?
To have this concern of privacy and these tech overlords coming in and taking your information, that's very valid. But something that people may not know is Xmode, which was that data company shown in the package, they are already providing location tracking services on apps that are used by public health officials. So weather apps, transit apps, people already have this information from you. And what is very interesting, though, that I think Apple and Google are doing is the whole consent aspect of it. So basically, they're in May going to release interfaces built on existing public health apps. So that is weather apps, transit apps, etc. And then second, in the months following that, they're going to work to enable a broader Bluetooth-based contact tracing platform. And so building that functionality into the app where, you know, the phone's not gonna be able to tell that you have coronavirus, obviously. So if you go and test positive for the coronavirus, you're able to put this information into this technology that will then anonymously give that information to people who you come in contact with, right? And so, but the only thing beyond that is that you would have to opt into this service to be able to use that.
There's a couple of problems with this. Maybe you guys have already thought of it. First of all, we're not already having problems with testing, mass testing anyway. We have no idea how many people are infected. Secondly, will people want to as you said, opt in, willingly input this information? As we have seen with software in the past that's been breached and, you know, hacked, they can make Bree, to your point, they can make as many promises as they want, but it's still vulnerable information. And whenever there's a disaster, let's go back to 9/11, for example, sweeping powers were given to the executive branch. And it was sort of like, we'll just take these powers for a little bit to keep you safe. So we're going to take away some of your, you know, privacy so that we can keep you safe and find the terrorists. The problem is when these things die down, they don't give the powers back, they keep them. As far as surveillance is concerned, I don't know if you guys have encountered this, but there's a lot of my fellow students who don't seem to think this is a problem. I'll give up my privacy so I can have free access to this, that, and the other. And until we have another Cambridge Analytica scandal, most people, this just flies under the radar, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another thing that we kind of need to realize is testing is so low right now. Nobody is getting tested because there's not enough tests to go around. So I think that's another thing that, you know, we need to think about is how are we going to say that we have it if we don't know for sure? So I think that that's another thing that is going to be coming out a lot soon, you know, when people really start hearing about this is where are we going to get tested at? But yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about that next week. But with that, it's all the time we have for today on the Report Roundtable discussion. Have a safe week, everyone, and stay tuned for more news, views, and info. I'm Brittany Slick.
I'm Jefferson Denham.
And I'm Ryan Matthew. And as always, Fullerton, stay fresh and clean your hands and stay safe.